Now on Wisdom Radio, Carolyn Craft's Inner Wisdom. Heart-to-heart conversations revealing the wisdom within.
Have an exciting, peaceful, joyful, meditative hour to share with you right now. We have our guests this hour are Dean and Dudley Evenson, and also Scott Huckabay will be joining us later in this hour. Scott has also performed on many of the albums that Dean and Dudley from Soundings of the Planet have produced. Dean is one of the true visionaries of the ambient new age musical genre. He's a prolific musician and composer, entrepreneur, media pioneer, and the list goes on. And Dudley, his wife, co-founded with him Soundings of the Planet in 1979. Together, they've produced over 35 albums. She has also been the art director, copywriter, etc., etc. We're going to find out more about both of them and also what they are up to right now and how you can learn more about this beautiful, wonderful, wonderful music. If you'd like to call in and speak with Dudley or Dean, you can call 1-800-655-2112. You can also email us at carolyncraft@wisdommedia.com. Hi, Dean and Dudley.
Hi.
Hello there.
Well, you have a new album out now, Mountain Meadow Meditation. We're going to hear some selections from that during this hour. What have you been up to besides just continuing to create?
Oh, there's some projects we've been working on locally in the community, and and there is a lot. And when you say create, there's a lot in those words because it's the support of that and the connecting out, and of course our daily practice of meditation and yoga too.
I don't see how. I mean, you are doing so much. I don't. I want to know your secret. You remain so peaceful.
We have 4 clones that we work with for each of us.
We do have good support. We have a wonderful staff, and we're just, a great group of musicians that we work with. And I think Dean and I are really fortunate because we have each other. We met in 1968, so we've had a long journey here, and having a partner has been really a blessing.
Makes it a lot of fun, too.
Yeah. So we go traveling, and we're always together. It's not like we have to wait to come home to see each other or whatever. So it's just, it's a team.
For those who may not, I'm sure there isn't anyone that's not familiar with your music, but may not know the two of you, you've started out together at during the Woodstock time, during the hippie era. What drew the two of you together?
I moved in across the hall from Dudley in the Lower East Side of Manhattan. That's what got us together.
we were, maybe just the synchronicity of our lives all coincided at the same time. So we got to find each other early on in our lives, and I think Dean and I have been, although we've changed, we've always still been the same essential selves. So when it was time for us to meet each other, there we were, and we've always had a similar vision of somehow helping this world or doing something positive or doing meaningful things with whatever our work is. And in the case of the beginnings of our work, Dean worked as a recording engineer and I was working with photography, and then we moved into video. So we always had a strong media background and wanted to use media somehow to create a more positive world.
You both, in being together this long, with, 30-some years then?
Yeah, that's 35
years. Many people would like to have in relationship, not only those years, but have what you two have, both focused in the same direction, doing great work and enjoying yourselves along the way. What has supported you during times of stress or times when maybe you might not have been on the same page together?
Knowing that we're both going towards the same end and basic love. Love is the answer. It really is. Understanding, support, not trying to create separation in our minds, and just knowing that it can all work out if we're going forward that way.
And I think a common spirituality, a spiritual practice. I can't emphasize enough how important spiritual practice is, because you can get really caught up in the busyness of the world. And I know myself, for one, I'm the busyness of my mind, and you need to always be able to ground out and center, and then to have to be able to meditate together. Dean and I have a lot of fun in the evenings. We enjoyed chanting and toning and making music together. So there's a commonality of our spirituality, and that I think really is something that can help a couple or any relationship, male female or partners in work or any kind of families, the family thing.
Mm-hmm.
To know that there's a spiritual meaning behind everything that we do, and to accept things that seem negative, maybe losing a job or getting evicted or feeling the stress of financial whatever. We all have common problems that come into our lives, and we've been able to see them as a kind of as a gift, or not exactly a blessing, but
Next
just
stage.
an opportunity.
Next stage coming up.
Okay, now we get to learn this lesson.
Oh, boy, this adventure. People start looking alike if they've been together so many years. And if you're chanting together and doing all this music together, you're vibrating alike. Probably by now anyway. Yeah. You've got 3 children. Are they involved in the music at all?
Not at this point. One of our children, Sarah, did compose and play on a couple of the albums, but they're off on their own artistic and creative paths at this point.
Right. Our daughters are tending more toward the creative arts. Well, actually, they all are. All our kids are into the arts. Our son is working as a computer animator, and currently is working at Microsoft. So he got right out of school. He's quite young. He's 22 years old, but he got a job. He was offered a job at Microsoft doing, they're working in their game department. So he, got to do what he loved to do, and of course was encouraged all his life in the arts. So he always had computers available and programs. And then our daughters both, Sarah is a painter and artist, and Kristen does a lot of beautiful crafts and makes incredibly beaded jewelry, and of course she's a mother, so that she's got an 8-year-old daughter. We have an 8-year-old granddaughter, and so I think what she's done through motherhood, or to watch our own daughter become a mother and be a good mother and loving mother and explaining how things work to her daughter, so it isn't just no, it's like no because, and and so they have a wonderful relationship.
You've got to be proud in the good sense, in an open-hearted sense. If you just tuned in, you're listening to Wisdom Radio. I'm Carolyn Craft, Dean and Dudley Evenson with us this hour. Something that you have written in a lot of your marketing pieces and so forth, that is, through our productions, we want to move people to positive action in the world. Touch on that a little bit for us.
Sure. One of the things that brought about the Soundings of the Planet initially was to help people understand the relationship of ourselves with the planet and the Earth. And that theme has continued through all of our work, and recently in the last half year or so, we have been developing the concept of peace through music, supporting peace and
not in the last half year, but for the 25 years.
Right. The peace through music concept came through in the early 80s, but recently we've been working on a project called the Solutions Project, Action Now, and Dudley's been very involved with that. Although we talk about it together, I kind of keep the biz going.
Well, and you've been doing the video. This is you may not know that much about this project. It's fairly new, and it came about because of a concern with the state of the world and just what's going on, and all the fear and the terror and the challenges that we're facing in our life. Well, that we see in the news and whatnot. So we decided that it was important to take action locally, and we formed this nonprofit. And The website is thesolutionsproject.org. You can learn more about it. But what we're doing is every month we focus on a different theme or a different aspect of our lives. And we address, what we realized is that in the past 30 or so years, since Dean and I have known each other, we've seen our culture evolve. We've seen a great deal of wisdom come forth, and we've seen skills develop that many of are based on ancient teachings and ancient truths, and that we applied in our lives. So now we're looking at, we have these healing modalities, and we've got a greater sense of the environment and the natural systems, and we've learned about relationships and conflict resolution. So every month in this project, we focus on one of the many, many aspects of our lives, and we've kind of narrowed it down to 12 generalities. And this year we started in January with creativity and self-expression and the arts, and then moved into relationships, conflict resolution in February, and learned so many things about the nonviolent communication and the different aspects that do help people solve their conflicts. Because if we can get that one on a personal level, on a community level, family level, and then, of course, on a global level, we'll have been able to move out of this sort of them and us and enemy concept that seems to be so prevalent.
Dudley or Dean, how do people interact in the Solutions Project? Did I miss that?
No, what we do is we've been publishing a calendar, and we identify and do the research at related to each month, prior to that month, of course, and bring a group of people together that are sort of the leaders in that field in our community, and we have a forum. And we we share what these people have learned and what we can benefit from, this skill and knowledge. So basically this is a wisdom sharing and skill building process. And we've been also identifying other events in the community that happen that are related to this. So each month we publish a calendar and say, this is happening in the community and you can participate. And then our monthly forum brings together the individuals who we've identified as experts. And then we have a community dialogue, and we go back and forth and we discuss it and we share that wisdom.
So this is a process, though, that someone could also learn from and set up in their own community?
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's a context for networking and getting together and creating community. And for instance,
Wonderful.
In May, we had the Youth Empowerment Month, and the event ended up 200 kids getting together and creating a fantastic creative rave event that they did themselves.
It was their expression.
Well,
and then, of course,
hear
we videotape it each month, so we're going to be creating programs that we can share with other communities.
Well, let's hear more about that when we come back. Dean and Dudley Evenson are with us. We're going to hear also, as we come out of this break, we're going to hear a little bit from Mountain Meadow Meditations. Stay with us. We'll be back in just a moment.
Now, back to Carolyn Craft's Inner Wisdom on Wisdom Radio.
Imagine yourself in a meadow on the side of a mountain, and the scent of spring flowers fills the air, and the music of soaring flutes and guitar harmonics floats on the breeze. This is Cut 1, Breath of Sky, from Mountain Meadow Meditation, Nature Music Series by Dean and Dudley Evenson. Soundings of the Planet. Scott Huckabay is also on this album. He's going to be joining us in just a little while. And this is a brand new album from Soundings of the Planet. And Dean and Dudley are with us this hour. If you want to call in or ask a question, make a comment, you can do so at 1-800-655-2112 or email us at carolyncraft@wisdommedia.com. Boy, that's beautiful. We're talking now, but we could just listen to that. Absolutely beautiful. What was happening with you both, or with you, Dean, when this album started birthing itself?
Well, I've always wanted to do a meadow mountain album, and so it's been gestating for quite a while. And Scott and I have a very beautiful connection, and both of us have a great love for nature and the mother and where we all come from. And we just wanted to express that through music.
I thought it was so endearing, I guess. I read some of your bio, and was talking about that when you were little, that you would place a microphone outside of your bedroom to capture the thunderstorms and birds and so forth. You knew early on at some level you were going to be doing this.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. I've always been involved with both nature and technology.
Well, and we're kind of lucky, too, because we really live near a meadow. Our home is just a meadow away from a rushing river coming down from the Cascade Mountains. So we get to watch the seasons change and the wildflowers bloom and that kind of thing. So it really is based on the deep sanctuary space of nature that we get to come home to after we travel all over the place.
Well, I know your intent with Soundings has been to encourage health and wellness, to support it, to activate it. What has been the effect of some of your music on health and wellness? What have you witnessed?
Well, it's interesting. Early on, we didn't even know about, quote, the healing aspects of our music. It was natural if one stepped back. But we started getting letters pouring in from people about how it was affecting their work with children in a cancer ward, for instance, or the facility in Texas wrote us about how they'd been trying to get through this one child, and they used one of our albums,
an
autistic child that they couldn't communicate with, and this album brought him out, and it worked for him, and so it became much more than we had even dreamed about.
Well, that was Ocean Dreams, and then a few years later we got a letter from Naomi Judd, who had been also using Ocean Dreams in her own healing process, and then she became a big fan of our music and ordered them and gave them out to people along her travels. So we realized that we've got something going on here. It's coming from a deep intuition. And, of course, Dean had been using the earth resonance frequency on the music, so that was actually helping people to go into train the brainwaves to the alpha state, which is actually the state you really are the most receptive in. You're still awake and alert, but you have the ability to receive healing in that.
It's a natural calm state, yeah.
Are you describing what the earth resonance frequency is, or can you describe it further for us?
Well, it's a concept. So the Earth has a cavity, an atmospheric cavity, and that cavity has its own sound, its own resonance that is specific for that cavity, just like a Coke bottle does, or a echoey room. Every space has that kind of frequency, a tone, if you will. And in the Earth's situation, it's a non-auditory tone, but we're bathed in that frequency all the time. And so it's interesting to see that the whales and the dolphins communicate using that frequency. The crickets use that frequency. Our nerve cells fire it close to that frequency, and it's also the frequency that our brain emits when it gets down into a more peaceful place. It goes through that frequency in the alpha range of its.
And was this on purpose?
In terms
was this something that you were incorporating from the very beginning on purpose? Or
actually, it came in not quite in the very beginning. It came in about 8 years after we started working.
Mm-hmm.
I was doing some research, and I came across this fact. And so we added it to the music, and it's been amazingly effective. And very subtle. It's not something that's you hear or you're that's the earth resonance frequency. It's something that's within the music itself.
It's such a low tone that it's auditory, and but you feel, your body feels it, your brain waves. Your brain hears it on a certain level. So it's just one other thing, in addition to the natural sounds and the beautiful music and the other things that we've identified that seem to really help put a person in a receptive state.
And the intention of the musicians is extremely high in terms of the importance of what happens with music.
Mm-hmm.
And we've had a good time, too, doing the research to understand how music, in fact, does support the healing process. So Dean and I travel around and do workshops on sound and healing, and we have a new workshop we've been creating called A Journey Through the Chakras, Music, Mudras, and Mantras, and we help teach people how to do the toning relating to the different chakras and create their own personal healing mantra. So there are a lot of wonderful ways that people can learn how to apply this in their own lives. And also just to sing, to express themselves.
Oh, yeah.
So, going for walks in nature and singing in the car. I think there's nothing like music to lift the spirit.
When you are doing these workshops and based on your research, what have you witnessed? Can you give us an example of someone or a particular healing, I guess, where you have witnessed this playing out?
Well, I had a particularly interesting experience a few years ago where I actually sang myself into health. I had some hearing loss, some dizziness, and nausea, and it was just really intense and going on for about a year. And I checked all the major medical and that kind of thing. And then I was reading a couple of books and really addressing the power of the mind and how that all works. And one statement said, "Are you singing? Are you feeling joy?" And I went, "Oh no, I'm too busy and I'm too worried and whatever, fussing around about stuff." And so I really, in addition to using our music for meditation and really that wonderful support for yoga and the other things that you really need to do to get yourself in a stable place, I started going for walks in the woods and just making up songs and singing. And then I decided to create a mantra for myself that dealt with my own issues, and it was clear my mind, open my heart, heal my body, heal my world. And I started singing that, and I had mudras and arm movements that went along with it. And within a week to 10 days, the dizziness stopped and nausea stopped, and I just started coming back into my own. And then a few months later, I actually noticed that my hearing was returning. So, that's been several years, and it's practically completely returned. So I thought, well, this is interesting. What I was doing was reprogramming myself. I was reprogramming my being and lifting my spirit. And so we've been able to teach that kind of process in our workshops where people can identify what their issues are and
they develop their own mantra.
Uh-huh. And and we've had a lot of positive feedback from people who've actually done it. Of course, the thing with any process or principle that it only works if you do it or use it, and so that's the key, is to find what works and then to actually do it. Like develop a discipline, develop a good sense of diet, a good sense of attitude and relationship, and get out in nature, things like that.
not leave all the good knowledge and wisdom in your head, but
Put it
actually
into
put your
practice.
body into it.
Yeah.
We're talking with Dean and Dudley Evenson, Soundings of the Planet. We're going to review talk about some of the other artists that have been on their recordings, and Scott Huckabay is going to be joining us following this break. His live performances are brilliant. We're going to hear more from him right after we pause. Stay with us.
You're listening to Carolyn Craft's Inner Wisdom on Wisdom Radio. Send email to carolynkraft@wisdommedia.com. Once again, here's Carolyn.
And you're not only listening to Inner Wisdom, but you are listening to the sounds of Scott Huckabay and Dean and Dudley Evenson. Dean and Dudley have come together. They came together many years ago in the 70s and started Soundings of the Planet. Wonderful, wonderful meditative music and nature sounds. And you can hear it in the background. Scott has joined us this half hour. Hi, Scott.
Hi, good morning, everybody.
Glad you could be with us. Scott has opened for such artists as Crosby, Stills, Nash, Jackson Browne, Sarah McLachlan, Bonnie Raitt, and many, many more, as well as other artists have appeared and done work with Dean and Dudley on Soundings of the Planet. And what are we listening to right now? Scott, are you playing?
Yeah, I'm waking up to the beautiful sunrise and over here in Oregon and playing the guitar for everybody.
Well, we have, Oregon, and Dean and Dudley, you're in California?
No, we're in Washington.
Washington, okay. And we're in Virginia. Boy, let's go. A virtual concert, anyway. Scott, before we really get into you can not stop playing, but give us an idea of what your beginnings were and what happened to you, I think, in the late 80s that brought you to your knees and inspired you to do the work you're doing.
Well, it was 1987 during a harmonic convergence, which was in late August, when all the planets were aligning at that time. And I was in Arizona, and I was on a motorcycle, and I was doing I was just young and just crazy. And one morning I was just cruising down the road, and all of a sudden this pickup truck pulled in front of me, and my whole life just flashed in front of me. And at that moment, I just kind of let go. Kind of like in that movie Dances with Wolves in the beginning when he was riding the horse across the two lines, the people that were fighting. And he just kind of let go and just surrendered to spirit, and he never got harmed or anything. And so, he did, but he lived. And so I feel kind of like that same scenario where I just kind of, at that moment of impact, I just kind of let go of the handlebars and just said, okay, here, wherever I'm going, this is it. So I just surrendered, and I was in the air for a little bit and landed, and next thing you know, I was, conscious and trying to figure out what happened, and that's when my leg got messed up, and my hands and my head. I hit my head really hard, and so anyway, it must have knocked some sense into me, and here I am playing the music that I'm supposed to be doing to help inspire this planet, the people on this planet.
Scott, you, in traveling and opening for some of these other artists, how is it different now with the work you're doing with Soundings and then?
You mean
your music and you personally, how is it different for you?
Since the accident, ever since I started playing the guitar, after really getting into it, I don't know. I just been on this mission to share this music, and it just keeps evolving wherever I go on this journey. So I just kind of give thanks to every moment.
What was it, Dean and Dudley, what was it about Scott that drew you to working with him as well, having him as an artist on your label?
Well, for one thing, Scott is probably the most creative guitarist we've ever seen on the planet. I mean, he impresses everyone who sees him that way. He is so unique, and he just does something with the guitar that nobody else has ever been able to do. And Dean, what have you?
Oh, his spirit, Scott's spirit is so wonderful. I mean, it's just a joy to be around him. And he emanates this kind of energy, and you can feel it from a distance. And so there was no no question of that we had a mission to work together.
He's a musical shaman. When Scott performs, the whole, you're not just watching some musician play. You are experiencing music at a deep level. And he really brings forth the earth, and he's very, very dynamic. So we get him really mellow and doing these incredible harmonics. But when he plays in performance, you have got to see him. He is dancing all over the stage.
Scott Huckabay, Dean, and Dudley Evenson are with us this hour. You're listening to Inner Wisdom on Wisdom Radio. I would love to just let you go and play a little bit, Scott. And we'll listen.
We got Dean on flute.
Yeah,
okay, let's take a
mix me in.
let's take a minute or two and just listen. You're listening to Scott Huckabay and Dean Evenson on flute. Wow. You have produced, Dean and Dudley, with Soundings, how many albums now?
Oh, about 50, actually.
And some of it, too, we've seen a lot of articles from your music, what you have done, and the healing music, the effects it has had and has on stress, which seems to be a big one for this country in particular.
Well, with Soundings of the Planet music, that is, as our motto is, peace through music, it is a major area that we want to help people get through stress, because if we're all peaceful, we're going to have a lot more peaceful planet. And we support anyone out there creating more peace, whether it be a musician or a politician or a person next door. Just each moment is a special moment, and that's where peace starts.
When I was, this was the mid-'80s, or the early 80s, I was in commercial radio and had a sales staff, and I remember telling them, I had a little Walkman and had some music on. I may have had Ocean Dreams, one of your earlier pieces, but I was telling them how if we could just pipe this in the clouds, how could we raise a hand to one another? How could we raise a voice? How could we have violent thoughts against one another? And then it wasn't long after that I was in the Chicago airport. I don't know if you've been through there, but they have this beautiful, relaxing music. As you go through the tunnel, there's a light show up above, and I'm hearing more, and I believe I'm hearing your music in different places, like airplanes and so forth, where it's just a natural background to promoting peace.
Yeah. It allows everyone to do what they need to do in their lives. It's not demanding of them to listen. It just creates a context for beauty to unfold.
Mm.
Well, people use it in hospitals as well as schools. I mean, and, we've gotten a lot of feedback from teachers who've used it to the benefit of creating more peace in the classroom, even.
And it isn't something that has to be literally understood. It can be experientially understood.
Yeah, it's a visceral situation.
Uh-huh.
Well, and Scott does some really interesting work with harmonics. You might want to ask him a little bit more about that, how that works.
Yeah, I love harmonics. When I lived with a pod of dolphins in Hawaii for a year, they every morning I would be in the water with them, just swimming for hours and hours, and they were the ones that taught me the harmonics and the frequencies that they create. And so I felt like they were my teachers, my bodhisattvas, and I was just there for that moment, and so in time, and they were just kind of just showing me what to express through the music to help inspire others on this planet, my mission. So
how would you explain harmonic? I guess what you're doing. Yeah, demonstrating is better.
It's like you touch the strings really lightly on actually anywhere, actually. And so what you do is just kind of tap it lightly, and when you pluck the string, you don't push your finger down on the fret all the way. You just kind of touch the string, and you hit with your other hand, you pluck that string, and then at the same time on the other hand, you let go of that string you're hitting, and you create these
So
bells.
It's all about plucking and letting go.
Yeah, that's the perfect balance, huh?
Scott, something also I've read where you are a self-described sonic alchemist. Explain that to us.
The sonic alchemist is just a word where I guess the closest to describe of what I'm doing is, it's just the way I live, the way I think and breathe and walk, and just appreciate every moment. And so when I'm playing the music, that's what's coming forth, and so that's kind of like just putting everything together in the music and letting it come out and turning it into gold, kind of thing. Or
what do you do, Scott, to keep yourself in a centered, inspired place?
I do actually do 2 hours of yoga every morning. When I wake up, I go into this trance and with my body, and I like to be in a quiet space so I can hear my heartbeat. And that way I can hear what's going on with my body when it changes. And so I do a lot of breath work, and the diet I eat mostly raw food, and I just keep a positive outlook on life, and and just express the music, and I'm just thankful for what I'm doing. It's a blessing.
Dudley, I understand more of what you said earlier about Scott being a musical shaman.
I know.
He's talking about his body changing shapes.
Yeah. And well, you can check out his website, ScottHuckabay.com. It's HuckAbay.com.
Scott Huckabay.
You can even see videos on his website.
Wonderful. ScottHuckabay.com. Well, we're going to hear more from Dean and Dudley Evenson and Scott Huckabay when we come back right after this break. Stay with us.
Now, back to Carolyn Craft's Inner Wisdom on Wisdom Radio.
And you are tuned to Wisdom Radio, listening to Inner Flight on Mountain Meadow Meditation, a recent album released by Dean and Dudley, Soundings of the Planet. We have Dean and Dudley with us this hour, and also Scott Huckabay. After years of organic growth, Soundings of the Planet has become a tremendous success, producing 7 consecutive Billboard charting albums and being selected as a Billboard Top 10 indie label 3 years in a row. And they have produced things such albums as Forest Rain, Desert Moon Song, Ocean Dreams, one of my favorites, early favorites, Wind Dancer, and many, many more. You can find out more about Soundings by going to their website, soundings.com. You can also call 1-800-93-PEACE. And we're so glad you're with us this hour. And Scott, you have not only toured with the greats, but you've also worked with Dean and Dudley and Soundings with a lot of other artists. Who has impressed you the most, or you felt like you really resonated and went to that sonic alchemy with?
With the Soundings crew?
Yeah.
Probably Dean Evenson.
Okay.
When we get together in the studio, we just, magic chemistry happens, and it's so funny, we're both Sagittarians, so, we're like one when we're playing, and he's on the flute, I'm on the guitar, and harmonics are coming out, and he's just blowing with the flute like we're going down a river to the ocean. It's pretty magical.
You know, I read too, Dean, where early in life, I guess this came from your deciding to go into music, that you said you went into science to find out what science knew about life. Tell us about that shift for you.
Well, for one, my music teacher said, don't try and make your living as a musician. It's too difficult. And so it steered me away from music in my head, and I've always been interested in science and what's going on with life here. I mean, it's such a miracle to be here, and so to find out what science knew, which when you get into science, it gets to a certain point, and it's a mystery there, too. There's no hard, cold facts about what science is all about. I mean, what life is all about. And
Professor Dean!
Yes, Professor Dean.
But isn't the line between science and, I guess, experience, it's sort of fading away now that we're seeing spirituality, science. We're just getting some sort of scientific explanation for what we're experiencing anyway.
Yeah.
And how we're growing. Who are some of the new artists that you might be working with now, and what are they bringing?
Well, Mishra is a sitarist from Benares, India, and he is on this new Mountain Meadow Meditation album, and he is bringing the ancient music and his lineage of India. He's a 7th-generation musician from India. So that's a whole new area that we're just beginning to explore. And in fact, he's coming in a few days to do some recording together with us.
How much of what you produce comes from the middle of the night? How much of it comes from sitting together, like what Scott was describing earlier?
That's a lot of it. I mean, we come together bringing our spiritual paths together and share with each other in the moment and open ourselves up to that wonderful energy that's coming through all the time anyway. Mm-hmm. And just be there with it, and it takes on its own life when we get out of the way and let it happen.
Yeah. We just let it flow. We're the channelers.
Yeah. Another thing that you are not just producing beautiful, beautiful meditative and healing music, but there's something you have on your website, and I'm wondering how involved you are with this right now, the Increase the Peace campaign.
Right, we put out a series of ideas that people can apply in their daily lives, because we talk about peace, and people might be concerned about what's going on over there in the Middle East, or what they hear about in another part of the country or the world. But the fact is, right here in your own home and in your own heart, that's where we need to begin. So we've taken it upon ourselves to list a number of different actions people can take and just ways we can approach it. So it all fits in with the Peace Through Music campaign and the whole concept of our record label, Soundings of the Planet, but it's also things we can do in our relationships with one another and to improve our communication and increase the peace in our families, in our schools, in our workplace.
You give examples of what businesses can do, what parents can do, what we as a nation can do. Can you touch on a little bit of that for us?
I think it'd be good, check out the website, because we can go on and on. I think being clear in our communication process, to trusting that, each person has, their voice, and, listening to each other, hearing, giving and receiving feedback in a loving way.
I think that's one of the real important areas of learning how to live on the planet, is being able to listen to one another.
And to keep the love flowing.
Yeah, without getting yourself in the way,
There, I'd like to touch on just a few things that and you do need to go to the website, but a few things to do as a nation that is recommended. Reach out to people of other races, cultures, and religions, and develop a sister city program with other countries. What is the Sister City program?
Well, different communities have identified kind of a compatible city in a different country. I know our community has one in Russia, and I believe Japan. I think there are a couple of them in Japan. And so then the cities actually begin to develop relationships with one another. We are finding that music, in our case, music can bridge the cultures, and that's what Dean was talking about with this young Indian sitar player, Deobrat Mishra, who's on the Mountain Meadow Meditation with Dean and Scott, and he and his father live and teach in India, right there on the Ganges in Benares, India, and so to be able to just have that communication. His father, who we haven't met yet, but he's coming soon, he doesn't even speak much English, but we're not going to worry about that, because there you have that opportunity to communicate through the music.
In the 80s, we went over to the Soviet Union and did peace concerts and created peace events, and we felt very moved and connected with the people by doing that work. So it's always been a part of our process to reach out to other cultures and create the bridge.
And then you have somebody like Scott, who is a bridge himself. His mother's Native American, and his father. Where's your dad from?
Well, he is French, Scottish, Irish.
So tell about your background with the Native.
Oh yeah, my mother, she's Chiricahua Apache, half Chiricahua Apache and Spanish.
A child of the universe you are.
Yes, you are the bridge.
In these closing
Universal freak.
in these closing few seconds, I would like to hear from each of you, if we have the time, just your picture for each of us personally, your picture for the world. What would you like to see?
I would just like to see everybody living in harmony and keeping their hearts with love, and just, believing that love is the center of all things. So I just, hopefully someday soon we will be there. And it is happening. It's just slow steps. Or it could be large steps, but, we're getting it together. So that's what I wish to see.
Well, we'll have Dean and Dudley back to tell us what you would like to see. Evenson's music has been selected for film scores, including the soundtrack to the PBS miniseries The Way West and Disney's Jungle Book preview. If you would like to know more about Soundings, order copies of the CDs or videos, you certainly can log on to Wisdom Bookstore. Is that right? Wisdom Store. That's it. WisdomStore.com. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
You've been listening to an original production of Wisdom Radio, a division of Wisdom Media Group Incorporated, copyright 2003, all rights reserved. Wisdom Radio, streamed on the World Wide Web at wisdomradio.com and beamed across the country on Sirius Satellite Radio. This is Wisdom Radio.